Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Joni Young and I'm going to show you all step by step how to paint this fantasy landscape. So let's go over some of the colors, the brush, and the canvas I'm using today, and be sure to look below this video for a full list of all the colors we're using as well. I've got a large oval mop brush. This is a 30, and you can just use any type of mop brush or blending brush you want if you don't have the specific one. I've got a 12 by 16 primed, double primed and stretched canvas, and the following colors: titanium white, neon yellow, warm and cool, neon pink, neon rose, burnt sienna, dioxazine purple, phthalo blue, bright aqua green turquoise, hunter green, and light olive green. So I know there's a lot on here. Don't get overwhelmed or intimidated. You don't have to use all of these colors that I'm using today, but if you want to, like I said, I'll have a full list below. And if you don't have these specific colors, like the luminous neon ones, these are by Holbein, by the way, but you can also get some neons. Really good ones if you can't find these ones. These are my absolute favorite, but if you can't find them, I would recommend, and you can also find good neons by Arteza, the brand Arteza, and Liquitex Basics Acrylic. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is just get this brush wet. So you want to have a wet brush to work with. It's really going to help blend out the colors onto the canvas. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white and a little bit of turquoise. I'm just going to scoop up a little bit like that. So I'm just going to start playing around with my brush, little wiggly crisscrosses, almost like little figure eights, just to get a nice soft blending. And I'm going to carry that turquoise down here. A little bit more water to help pull that paint out of my brush. Okay, so I'm focusing more on the center here to apply the turquoise. Okay, so the next color I'm going to use is my phthalo blue. I'm not even going to wash my brush off. I'm just going to start applying it right off the top left and around the side, all the way down to the bottom left. Now here, I'm going to start creating those fun little figure eights, little crisscross. You can apply the paint however you like. You can even just make little circles with your brush. Okay, so we've got a nice blue here on this side. The next color I'm going to use, I'm going to take a little bit of white and Dioxazine purple. I'm going to add this along the far right side and let it mix in with that remainder of blue in my brush. The same brush stroke, little figure eights or little circles. See, when we start to make these little soft circles, it kind of gives us the illusion of clouds as well. So this is kind of leading up to creating some clouds. We have a little bit of purple here on the side. I'm going to overlap on that phthalo blue. See how pretty that looks? Now it's really already starting to draw us into the light in the center. We're creating this kind of vignette here around the edge, aren't we? Add a little bit more purple. There's a little bit of white in there too, but not very much. Now this brush is starting to get pretty saturated and it's losing its shape. It's leaving some kind of harsh streaks now. So this is the time I know I need to switch to a dry brush. So I've got one of these. It's a lot smaller. and it's really soft. It's about a 1 inch, and it's a round mop brush. This is actually a makeup brush. I find that makeup brushes really work well. Like, they don't shed, and they hold their shape really well. I've had these for a long time, and I'll have a link below the video. I usually have links below for supplies I use. I don't make any money off of them. I just like to share the products that work well for me with you guys too. So what I'm going to do is just start going around with this dry brush, softening any harsh lines, little circles. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white and a little bit of that rose. Again, no water on my brush. Just a little bit like this. And I'm just going to start adding little circles again over top of the purple and partially over the turquoise as well. And I'll bring a little bit over on this side too. Soften continuously. Twist your brush around. And the next brush I'm going to be using is a size 0 filbert brush. I'm going to get a little bit of white on it and a little bit of warm yellow and some neon pink. Mix all 3 colors up. Again, that was titanium white, neon yellow warm, and neon pink. Have a little bit here on the tip of my brush. I haven't applied any water to my brush at all. And just watch closely. Just adding these little half circles. Let's mix up a little bit more here. So you can add small ones and then a few kind of clumped together, and then some bigger ones. So you just kind of want to change it up here and there. See, we're bringing these clouds to life. We're adding some glowing light. So you just kind of go over top of part of the cloud and over the background color. You can even just kind of scumble if you want. So you can have some softer looking highlights or more defined, edgier looking ones like that. Skies and water are 2 things that I can just spend hours on, just kind of get lost in painting. I really enjoy working on them. Take a little bit more pink right here. It's a little bit more with everything else that's on my brush. I'm just going to add it here over that purple. So we get a bit of a smoky, hazy look to some of the clouds. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of the white, the pink, peachy color here, and I'm going to start twisting little dots like this. They're going to be little like stars and sparkles and just magical things. And then when the paint runs out of my brush, I'm gonna soften them and blend it out in quick little circles like this. I'm steadying my hand by placing my pinky on the canvas where it's dry. So here we're just creating those soft glowing hazes around. And you can do that first and then come in with the lighter colors after. Okay, see, so we can come in now and start adding some colors. And they don't have to be perfect circles either. Don't think that you have to have like a perfect circle for these little magical floating stars or whatever they are. I don't know. Like I said, I just make these paintings up here for you guys. I film myself and talk to you and explain it in a step-by-step way so you guys can not only understand my process a little bit more when I'm working on these fantasy pieces, but you can follow along as well, because these fantasy paintings seem to bring so much joy to you guys, and I love knowing that, and I want to thank you guys for reaching out to me and, you know, subscribing to my channel and supporting my painting journey here. And so because of that, all your love and support, I'm able to continue sharing my art and my love of painting with you. So I encourage you to get your paintbrushes out if you're thinking about it and you want to paint along. I'm just washing my paintbrush out, and I've been adding a little bit of the rose and a little bit of white here. So I'm going to start adding little dabs. I don't want it to look too much like a pattern. I want it to look a little bit more sporadic and random. So I'm going to come back in here and add a few more that are a little bit thinner in paint, because I've got a tiny bit of water on my brush right now. And I'm just going to go in and layer over, adding a few more. Okay, washing my brush out again. The next color I'm going to be using is a little bit of that phthalo. So I'm going to come down here on the edge. I'm going to add a few little blobs. Again, not overly being concerned about making a perfect circle. Some of them can be. I'm not thinking about a circle when I'm adding these. I'm just thinking about glowing little things. They could be fireflies, they could be little fairies, little stars, moon dust, I don't know. Okay, then I'm going to take a little bit of white and I'm going to go over some of them. See how we're making them glow a little bit at a time like this? And you don't necessarily have to add the white right in the center of them. You can add it a little off to one side. We can layer over, and I encourage you to layer over because we're going to get a nice transition of these colors into other ones. This kind of reminds me of how my process is when I add Christmas lights to Christmas trees in my winter paintings, just to create that glowing frosty look to the lights. I love that look when they're outside and the lights are on a tree that's just covered in snow and it's frosty out. So adding a little bit more white now. We're going to take some turquoise next, a little bit of turquoise and white, and we'll have a few up here. Dab, dab, dab. Everything's sort of going in towards the center here, isn't it? Being drawn in to the light. I'll add a little bit of white, dab, dab. A few little ones down here. Again, it's fun to layer over. Don't be scared to layer over. And see, it looks nice and bright even though this is the soft turquoise that we just made and picked up. But it works because there's more white on my brush than there is turquoise. So it's helping to create that glowing effect. Now I'm going to go back into my turquoise and I'm going to add some around the outside. So I'm showing you guys different ways of approaching it. You can start these light to dark or the white to color, or you can start them color to the brightest light in the center. Either way works. Okay, come back in and add a little bit more white. And you can use a liner brush too if you want. I might come back in and just dab with a bit of white and even a soft yellow. I'll just take a little bit of this paint off. I've got quite a thick amount there that I can take off and add it to all these other little ones here. You know, with acrylic, it does dry a little bit darker, so it's really normal to have to go back and re-highlight. It can help applying gesso or having a decently primed canvas beforehand. And it also helps to not use too much water. When you have too much water, at first it looks light and it looks like it's the right color, but then once it dries, if you've used too much water, it's just going to fade away and you'll be left with kind of not much there. So, but it's all about trial and error, and you know, I can tell you how much I'm using and you guys can watch me, but the best way to learn is to practice and discover how much you need, because there's so many different factors that go into it that play a part in it. It's like the type of paint you're using, the type of canvas, the temperature of your studio, how much water, you know, how much pressure you're using, the brushes you're using, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need an expensive brush, because you certainly don't. My brushes I'm using are not expensive. Okay, now for the next step. I've cleaned my brush off. I'm going to take a little bit more turquoise and I'm going to come right in here and just pull side to side. I want to create like a flowing river here. Got a kind of a theme going lately with rivers and sparkly things and kind of magical flowing rivers lately, and skies. My last one I did is called River of Dreams, and that's really colorful, fun one, and I think this will be a part 2 to that, so I hope you guys enjoy adding this one and painting along. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more turquoise and I'll come around outside here. I want to have a little bit more color leading up to the bright white inside. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo blue. And I'm going to come around, scumble around just the edge here. Scumbling is just blending, just a gentle scrub. And it always sounds like I'm being a lot rougher than what I am because the microphone is too good here on the camera. But it really is very gentle. You don't need to push very hard, and if you have to feel like you have to push too hard, then you might need more paint or more water. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more here on the edge, layering over that purple, and then I'm going to come in and add a little bit more purple over top of the blue. Layering is fun, and it's here's the Dioxazine purple. Layering is fun, and it's also a wonderful way to create so much depth and life within a painting. So I'm just coming in over top of part of that blue, and the blue is over top of part of the turquoise, and then we've got that first layer that we started with. So I've got a little bit of this neon yellow coal that I haven't used yet with a clean brush, a little bit of titanium white, and a little bit of that yellow. I'm going to come right in here and add a little bit of this. A little bit more white because we're adding it over top of the turquoise, and it's a cool yellow. It's going to dry looking like a lighter shade of a yellowy green kind of color. So depending on how much white you add, it will alter that a little bit. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to just continue creating these little wiggles. And I'll add a few little stars here as well. Get it on the very tip of my brush. I'll just, if you guys are just stopping in now and watching, I'm using a size 0 filbert brush, and you can use any small brush, any brush that you feel comfortable with. I think too many people get caught up in the brush that they think they have to use. You watch me paint and think that you can't follow along because of the brush I'm using, or the paint, maybe you don't have it. And that's not true at all. That couldn't be farther from the truth. Don't ever let that hold you back from painting along. I didn't have anything like this when I first began, except for a love of painting, and that took me to where I am today. I used whatever I could around the house, and I grew from there. I'm adding a little bit more of the cool yellow, white, and a little bit of turquoise, and I'm going to add a little bit here, just coming up and adding those little curls and swirls. A little pull down and across for reflection in the water. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to my brush. The next brush I'm going to be using is another filbert brush, but this time I'm using a number 8. I'm going to get my brush just a little bit wet, but I'm going to dry any drips off on a towel. And I'm going to take some of my burnt sienna and some dioxazine purple. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in along the side here and just slide my brush over top of that purple. Let's take a little bit more. Take a little bit more purple and a little bit of blue, not washing my brush out. I'm going to just kind of slide, wiggle, and work my way kind of in and around our stars there, or our little glowing things, whatever they are. Take a little bit of light olive green without washing my brush off. I'm going to go right across, partially over the top. A little bit more. I'm going to rinse my brush out. So I just got a damp brush, and I'm just going to lightly blend it out. Softening. We can still see those bright stars underneath. Okay, and then from down here, just using the very tip of my brush, turning it over, gentle pull and flick up like that. I'm going to take a little bit of hunter green, burnt sienna, purple, and olive green. Got a little bit of white in there, but that's all right. We're going to make it work. I forgot that I had that white in there, but that's okay. Come bring this out a little bit over here. And then again, pull and flick up. Just making an instant forest here. We can add anything we want to our painting. We're making up our own little fantasy worlds here. No rules. You just do what you want. Okay, some more paint. Add a tree right here. So I'm just pulling out a little line, turning my brush. This one wants to be a little crooked. I like crooked trees. So I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not gonna try and fix that. They have the most character. And then I'm gonna turn my brush this way and just start tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Gentle little push as you get a little bit further down. Make some of these areas a little thicker. A little bit more purple and green. So it's darker down here. And we're gonna let that star glow through there. We're not going to cover that one up. And let's add a few more. I'll add a few more trees right here. Another little crooked one. They're leaning towards the light. and then have them just getting a little smaller and smaller until we just have a little bit there in the background. Now we're going to go take a little bit of water on our brush, work out some of that paint, and we're going to add a little reflection, just to pull and drop like this. We're not going to paint like a mirrored reflection, we'll just have a few little lines. But a tip for you when you're painting reflections in the water, whatever direction it's going in on the top, you're going to do the opposite here, okay? So instead of going like this down in the water, have it this way, you're going to go and have it come out like this a little bit. But I'm not going to do a whole lot. I'm not one of those overly detailed mirrored reflections. We don't have a lot of room there anyways. Just taking a little bit more, and then a little bit of that light olive green, and we're just going to tap in a little grassy area here. Tap, tap, tap. Take a little bit more. See how I'm loading it though? I'm kind of pulling in order and just loading up 1/4 to 1/3 of the way up the brush. So I kind of want to just make this look like sort of a bank. So on an angle, I'll tap and then start to go up and have it just disappear. Let's take a little bit more. And this time I'm loading it just on the very tip of my brush because I need it to be very narrow to reach. Just these narrow little spots that come down here. And I'm going to add a little bit of this green to the trees. They're still going to dry really dark, but I want them to be tinted with this color. I like this earthy green with all these other pretty colors. I think it's a nice balance. I think it would be kind of pretty to have a little bank in here, so I'm going to take those colors again that I began with: purple, burnt sienna, little hunter green, olive green, and I think I'll just come in right in here, kind of on an angle, and just be bumpy, pushing with the side of my brush. Take a little bit of my olive green, again with the side of my brush. Then I'm gonna wiggle, wiggle, push gently like that. Load my brush up with the dark colors again to work on the base of my trees. And I'll add a few more. So I'm just gonna gently pull and flick up for that instant little forest. If it's not working and looking kind of feathery like this, all that means is that you need a little bit more water on your brush. Don't go back for more paint, because 9 times out of 10, that's the issue. So we've got a little star back there. I like that little star, so I'm going to try and leave that there and just tap in some branches here around it. I just picked up the tiniest bit of water. That's just going to help the shape of my branches here. So isn't it cool, just with a filbert brush, how much you can do. Create the land and all that grass, hillside, as well as all the trees. Turning it this way for the tree trunk, and then this way for tapping in those little branches. Very cool. I love these brushes. I recommend them all the time. And I just want to continue adding a little bit of this olive green and have it kind of just mingle in a little bit. Mingle. Kind of work its way down. And I'll take a little bit of white. A little bit of white. You know what? I'm going to take a little bit of that neon yellow as well. Let's add a little bit more light in here. I like the way that looks. And I know that it'll dry darker if I don't add this. Get a little bit here on my brush. Tap, tap, tap for a bit of color. Just tinting those trees a little bit like that. We can sneak a little bit in there too behind these trees, so just a little bit of that neon yellow cool. And maybe just a little bit there in the water. Okay, I'm gonna let that kind of just dry for a little bit, and then I'll switch over to adding some more bright light and maybe some stars. So I'm just taking my liner brush, a bit of white, water, and neon pink. I'm gonna add a little bit more color here. So I'm just partially going over those ones that I did at first. I'm going to add a little bit more color to them. And then you can go inside and add a little dot or dab. You can add little lines like this, gentle little flicks to make some of them look more like they're twinkling. And then I'm going to go into my warm yellow and white without washing my brush off. So it's got a little bit of that pink in it as well. We're going to bring this down into the water. And it's not a race. Take your time. I've always been kind of a fast painter. That's not always a good thing. It's just that we all have our own way of painting, and for me it's like I'm just so in the moment of creativity that I don't always slow down, because when I have in the past, if I've taken a moment to just kind of go inside and have a break or answer the phone or something, when I come back I'm in a different mood, in a different mind frame, and I've forgotten that idea that I had. So I just kind of go with it, and I don't want you guys to judge yourselves for the speed in which you paint. We all paint at our own level, and not even level, just comfort. There's no right or wrong way to paint. Just paint. Just start somewhere. There, now it looks like it's glowing and twinkling, doesn't it? I love that. Okay, I'm gonna go into my cool yellow now with my white. And I'm gonna add a few more little dabs here. A few more scoops around my clouds. Work on adding a little bit more of a haze wherever I need to. And yeah, you can do that with a little round brush or a liner brush as well. Okay, and I'll add a few little twinkles here. If you guys are just tuning in now, I'm intuitively painting and making it a tutorial for you guys because I love to paint and I love to share it with you all. And don't forget to leave a comment below if you enjoy this and subscribe to my channel. I've got lots here on my channel for you and a ton on Patreon too if you feel like you want to sign up for $5 a month. You'll be helping out my channel a lot. And you'll receive some wonderful benefits in the process. I'm just going to kind of continue around here, adding more and more of these beautiful little lights. You can even use your finger to dab off on these smaller ones. I'm going to take a little bit of white and just go inside. Even adding a little bit of yellow, this pale buttery yellow, can be really pretty too. I'm going to add a little bit more light down here while I've got this color here on my brush. Same brush stroke as when we were using the filbert, back side to side or back and forth, and then down. Take a little bit more yellow. I'm gonna rinse my brush out and for a quick minute here, just switch over to a filbert. We'll blend this out. Soften, soften. Create some light behind these trees. Just soften this a little bit as well. Okay, back over to the liner brush. Right, we're going to continue over here. So I've got some more pink here. And if you don't have a neon rose, we can make something pretty similar here by taking a little bit of phthalo blue and a lot of neon pink. It'll be kind of close. And you can also you can use quinacridone violet or magenta with white and a little bit of blue, phthalo or cobalt or ultramarine, and you can get something very similar. So I've got a lot of color recipes out there for you guys if you're wanting to know how you can paint along and use another color to create that. So even just by taking the neon pink and going over the bluey purple we have there, we get something very similar, don't we? All right, so now I've got a little bit of white and neon pink. I'm gonna go inside here. And start adding a few lighter tones over top of some of existing ones that we have here, and then just sometimes just adding some newer ones. And then here in this area where we've got that green, wouldn't it be cool to just kind of start transitioning into some of this cool yellow? All right, so I'm just going to soften around the edges here. take a bit of white, dab, dab, dab. A little bit more white, and pull, pull, pull. If you want a little extra, you can put one in the center like that across. Make a little starburst, and then dab it with some white. Sometimes you need to, sometimes you don't, so it all just depends how much you're taking off or how sparkly you want them to be. And they don't all have to go straight up and down like that. You can have some of them on a bit of an angle like that. And then take a little bit more white, I'll say on this one, where we really need it. And maybe a little bit more yellow. So really play around with your colors and don't be afraid. Don't let that fear creep in the back of your mind that's telling you you're overdoing it, don't add any more. And for you beginners out there, don't judge your paintings too soon. I talk about this a lot in my tutorials because I've always gotten new people joining and watching, and one of the most common mistakes that we make when we're beginning is judging our painting too soon, just picking up a little bit of pink, alternating between the yellow and the pink and the white. What we tend to do is partway through our painting, look at them and judge them too soon, thinking they look terrible, and we throw them out. I don't do it anymore, but I used to. And I always tell this story. I used to do it all the time until one day I got tired of doing that, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to keep going because it's going to end up in the garbage anyways, but I'm just going to keep going. And by the end of it, I had completed a pretty nice painting, and then I noticed a pattern happening that during a certain stage of every painting, it's called an ugly stage. And you have to push through that and ignore it. I'm just going to soften around here a little bit. Push through that stage and keep going, because when you're at an ugly stage, instead of being frustrated and wanting to throw it out, remind yourself that's where you want to be. The ugly stage is getting you closer to the final stage. Okay, I'm just coming in here and sneaking in a little bit more light, just with that neon yellow and a little bit of white. And then I'm going to soften. So neon paints, I also want to mention that neon paints are transparent, meaning they're see-through. They're supposed to be, and they're wonderful because of that. You can use them to create filters, glazes, added them over top of other colors when they're dry. They're just super versatile. If you want them to not be see-through, then you'll have to add them with an opaque paint, such as, for example, the white is opaque, the turquoise is opaque, and this light olive green are opaque. Now those are opaque because they've got some white in them, so there are see-through whites though, so don't be confused. Titanium white is not, it's opaque, but if you have, I'll just grab it here quickly. For example, zinc white is see-through, and it shows you that on the top. Well, with golden acrylics it does anyways. It shows you the transparency that it has, or the opaqueness. So just a quick little tip there for you guys. Okay, so I'm going to move on up here, and I'm going to add a little bit more turquoise, create some more color. I love color, so I use more of it, but you may be wanting to use a little bit less. It's all up to you. I'm going to come in the center and just add a little star inside of each one. Some I'm going to make a little bit fuzzier inside before I add my little star. So they're all going to be a little bit different. So you can just keep going and adding as much as you want, layering over. I love acrylics because of that. With oils, you kind of have to wait. They're not as forgiving. And I don't have the patience for that, so sorry guys, that's why I only do acrylics on my channel. But if you're following along and you're a watercolor painter or pastel, whatever medium you use, feel free to follow along. The rules change a little bit because oils and acrylics are opposite. I'm just going to dab, 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 and then create some little wiggles and scoops here. Take a little bit more of that turquoise and go back where I left off. See, it looks like they're just kind of trailing. Maybe they're coming from up here, down here. Okay, so down here, I want to add a little bit of blue and white. Maybe a little bit more blue. Let's see if we can, there we go. Such a pretty color. There are a few different blues out there, quite a few different blues. And this is just one. This is my phthalo. But you could use cerulean. There's a phthalo cerulean you can also use. Or cobalt, ultramarine blue. Take a little bit more and I'm going to come down here in the foreground. Go around this star. And this is what I mean, like with layering over. You just get so many different colors this way. And then if you happen to accidentally take off the very center, just go back, dab, dab, and soften some of these down here. Start coming in and adding a little bit of white. Wherever you see that you're not having that nice bright glow, just go in and dab. Now I'll take a little bit more blue. And then a little bit of white again until I get the right color and consistency and glow that I want. So this can take some time and it'll be different for each one of us. And have these coming out into the water or over the water. I'll start adding a little bit of turquoise to my white. Dab, 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 dab. I'm going to come in here and start adding a few waterfalls. I'm going to add some burnt sienna, dioxazine purple, and green base, just right in here. Just come in just where it's nice and dark here on the side, and just add a little something. I feel like I want a little bit more something here on the side. And a little bit of greens, both greens. And again, have it kind of mixing in to everything else. I'm gonna go back for more those dark colors. Got a few trees in here the same way. These are going to be leaning in towards the center as well. I'm not doing this on purpose, it's just the way they end up. And I just go with it. I'm going to add a little bit down here as well. Maybe a little bit of phthalo in there. Just pulling out from down here. And then wiggling in and around to carry that. A little bit more on this side too. It's creating more depth, isn't it? It's making everything just pop out and glow just a little bit more. That all helps to add to the atmosphere. I'm going to take a little bit of that light olive green. Just a little bit here off the edge. Again, it's going to dry a little bit darker, but I want to have a little bit more of a hint of this green in here. Okay, I'm going to add a few waterfalls now. I'm going to start with my phthalo and turquoise, not over mix. I'm going to come from here, drop a little pool here, and drop. Take a bit of white. Maybe we'll start one right up here. It falls down here. Doesn't have to make sense. Add a little bit more, a few more trees here. A little bit of moss here on the side. And tap in some branches. Back to olive green. Start working that out into the cloud until it just kind of dissolves and disappears. I'm going to add some turquoise and white, maybe a little bit of that blue. Coming down here as well from the waterfall. So they start out streaky, waterfall-like, and then they start to separate into these beautiful little light orbs or stars. So to make it look like they're part of the water, you can just kind of dab and then wiggle some down and then continue on. I'm going to make some of them a little bit bigger down here. You just never know where your imagination will take you, and that's what I really like to show you guys through these intuitive paintings. It's exciting for you and me both because I don't know what it's gonna turn into. So I'm back with my, obviously here with my little liner brush, and I'm just adding a little bit more white, a little bit of blue, the waterfall colors. Take a little bit more of the blue there. I'll have them coming down here in the water. I'm going to go into my yellow, a little bit of yellow and white. My brush is clean. I'm going to add a little bit around the turquoise. And then a little bit more white again. Add a few sparkles down here, right down here in the water. Start adding a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to take a little bit of Dioxazine purple and white. I'm just going to add a few reflections down here in the water. Back over to my white and warm yellow. I'm going to add a few more layers within my clouds. A little bit of white and yellow. And some light down in the water again. Take a bit of pink, white and yellow. And I'm just going to dab a few little flowers in here. Maybe a little bit in here too. Just add a little bit of this neon pink here and there. Okay, I'm going to add a few sun rays now to finish off this painting. I'll just quickly dry this off first. Okay, so for my sun rays, I'm going to use one of my angled brushes just to demonstrate a different brush for you guys that you can use if you're not sure. You've seen these brushes in the art store and you think, what the heck can I do with that? Well, you can paint waterfalls with them, buildings, of course, because they have that nice angled edge, and also sun rays. So I'm just going to get my brush wet. This is a number 10. I might have mentioned that already. And I'm going to take some of my yellow and a little bit of white. So I'm using my cool neon like highlighter yellow, white, and water. So again, this is one of those things where I can't really tell you exactly how much water I'm using. Enough to make it pretty transparent, but just enough that it's going to leave a mark there. So we're going to start on an angle from the inside of one of my clouds here and pull and sweep. I need a bit more water on my brush. So it's up to you how many sun rays that you want to add. I like to have different sizes as well. So some of them are going to be thicker than the others. You can also tint your sun rays with a little bit of pink or a bit more yellow, whatever color you want to use. And then I'll just go down again here. All right, well, I think I'm going to call this painting all done. This was such a joy to get to paint and share with you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel for more. See you soon in my next video. Bye, everybody.